Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast, a space for nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living. What would it be like if you gave your body a leadership role in your business and chose greater happiness every day? These are the conditions that create a healthy biome and a thriving business. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. Today is December 11th, 2024. Heading into like full-on Christmas mode around here. And it's kind of a fun time of year. I have to say I enjoy it. I enjoy it more and more every year. Just learning how to kind of like do it my way. And make sure I take care of my body and take care of what I require has made the holidays a really fun, sweet time for me. And I'm grateful. So I hope that you have easeful holidays, whatever that looks like for you. And what else is possible with all of that? So I'm looking forward to a new year as well. It's going to be fun. There's so much popping. There's so much available now with creation and future and the seekers of the world, the humanoids, those of us who know something is different and something different is available. Just having it, it's like it just feels like it's our time. And I'm super excited about that and grateful, so grateful for all the people that get to that I get to play with and that play in these conversations of different possibilities and the tools of access consciousness and bowspringing and all the body stuff I get to do. It's been a really beautiful year, and I am grateful beyond, and I look forward to finding out what's going to happen next year. So I wanted to talk today about really specifically about the energy of intensity. We've been putting together some stuff, and I have a new website that's in the works, and it's been in the works for a while, as websites do. But this one is, I think we've kind of turned a corner, and we're getting some new awareness about what we want to put in it. And because one of the things for me that's been so interesting is I am an intense mofo, and there's so many things that I do. There's so many conversations I like to have and weave together, and none of it can be easily like put into a niche or defined or like described. When people are like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "How much time do you have?" Because I haven't been able to like put into like a pithy, sentence, what it is that I actually do, because it's not, I don't like to define. When we define things, we confine them. And I don't like to define or confine myself or my business. And yet, it can be helpful to be able to talk about what you do. And there's a lot of people that I talk to that have a similar thing where it's just like, well, I use energetic tools and I help people create and I help people change in any area of their life. And, that doesn't even begin to really capture it. One of the energies that I've played with for a long time, and if you've listened to this podcast before, I've done some episodes specifically around this thing that I call the creation of living. And creation of living to me is this like playground where we get to really have pleasure and aliveness and hedonism and creation that includes our bodies and how much our bodies love to experience beauty and hedonistic pleasures and luxury and, just the gorgeousness of the physical world that's available, both through nature and art and, beautiful spaces and beautiful meals and conversations and all of that. And so the creation of living is, it's this universe, and I've started to kind of put some words to it in a different way around intensity, relaxation, hedonism, and elegance. To me, those are four energies that really describe some of that massive universe that can't really be described, but some principles, some things to kind of bat around and play with that we can embody, that we can have more of in our lives as a way of really, just starting to live in a different way, and starting to create, like, have lives that are just absolutely flourishing every day. Like, your life could be this flourishing expression of beauty and experience of beauty and pleasure and aliveness every day. We just tend to not allow that because we want to be normal. And this is not about being normal. So within that creation of living kind of universe, I there's this, so I one of the, as I play with these energies of intensity, relaxation, elegance, and hedonism, the intensity is one of those that I really would like to highlight, and maybe I will highlight all of them at some point on the podcast. But because intensity is one of those energies that a lot of people see as wrong, and a lot of people try to like avoid it or turn it down or not be as intense as they are. And also, it's one of those things where we don't really necessarily always know how, we don't know how to work with those energies. That's to me where like the relaxation comes in, and having this like hedonistic living that most people aren't willing to have, can give us this kind of like channel for the intensity that a lot of people that I work with and know have. And intensity can be, like on its own, it's a very it's a very intense energy. It's an energy that can kind of like, it can feel sometimes like we're kind of like blowing our circuits, or we're going to if we don't do something about it. And I know, like, when I was younger, I remember being like, I need to learn how to meditate, and I did transcendental meditation. I did Kundalini meditation. Kundalini meditation was cool because there was a lot of intensity. Kundalini meditation is very intense. You're doing a lot of things. You're like breathing and rolling your eyes and batting your arms about and chanting some mantra. There's a lot of like multitasking that goes on with Kundalini meditation. And I taught that for a few years. I taught Kundalini yoga and meditation. And that was like one of the ways that I could meditate that actually worked, because I wasn't just trying to sit there and follow my mind and be present with my mind and my thoughts. To me, that was just, there was way too much going on in my inner world for me to just sit there and watch them, watch the thoughts. Dancing is more of a meditation for me. Hiking, running, like being intense with my body. And then this whole, like the Kundalini universe, which was like, moving my body. Like you're literally doing like 5 things really intensely when you do Kundalini meditation. So, and it got a little, like, I was kind of done with that after a while. But what do we do? Well, like, what do you do when you're an intense mofo? How does that, like, how do you channel that, because I know for me, a lot of times, and a lot of people that I work with, like, it can feel like you're going to like blow your own circuits, or you're going to blow somebody else's circuits if you bring yourself to the table with yourself or with somebody else in a way that's true for you, and, people want to be authentic. They want to be expressing themselves. They want to be, moving through the world in a way that feels true. And yet, as we do, like, it can be very, like, if we're just like, fire hosing the energy that we be, that can be, it can kind of have this sense of like bowling people over sometimes, and that's not even wrong. Like, I'm not even here to say you shouldn't do that. I would never say that about anything, but it's not about like, how do you do something other than that? Because we got to be willing to, like, we've got to be willing to totally overwhelm people, bowl them over, fire hose them. Like, and it's not because you're going to be unkind. It's just, we do so much like titrating of ourselves and like holding ourselves back and only like dropping little bits of, of energy into situations at a time, so that we don't explode, and or explode whatever it is that we're doing. And yet, so how can we be fully ourselves with that intensity in a way that's going to create greater, and for you, for you and your future. And if people get overwhelmed, well, they get overwhelmed, and it's good to be aware of that. But I would say to function in a way where you're like constantly wondering if that's happening, holding yourself back so it doesn't, like, that's where we start to really kind of like mess up our own worlds and like really get into this computational way of being that is about like holding all this stuff back. Our bodies go into stress. And it actually, the funny thing is it creates more intensity, because we tend to, it's almost like it just gets like held in our system, And I started to talk about relaxation. I got a little sidetracked because, I'm a little ADHD. But relaxation is one of those things that the standard model relaxation it doesn't really work for intense people. Just sitting there watching your thoughts it's probably not going to be something that you're going to be able to do very well. Maybe you do, some people meditate very well, and I don't mean meditation is the only thing, but like getting a massage or, putting on like nature sounds or, and none of those are like, those are all resources, and if they work, great. And I actually do love getting body work. For me, the massage has to be intense though. It has to be like really squeezing my tissue. And this beautiful, amazing lady that I work with in Boulder, if anybody is here or, is coming through town, hit me up and I'll share her info with you, because she's absolutely incredible. But she uses all these oils and salves, and there's all these smells, but like in a good way, because I'm really sensitive to smell. But she's really incredible. So that kind of intensity can be really cool. But we have to know what works. And I think a lot of times for me as an intense person, like I've made it so wrong for so many years, and until I stopped, and I still do sometimes, but less and less all the time, where it's like, I'm not interested in judging myself for this anymore. I'm interested in like really using it to create way greater, outcreate myself, outcreate the world, like go, And so how do we do that with a sense of like peace and ease and relaxation? And, this is where, to me, we start to get into that creation of living conversation of like being that in the world in such a way, and being that with ourselves and in our bodies in such a way that is generative and that is nurturing and that is creative of a future. And that is where you still feel like you get to fire on all of those amazing cylinders that you have available to you in a way that expands your future and the future. And so one of the things I would say with that is it's like getting into a space of allowance with ourselves is really key with this. And allowance is one of those things where, basically what I mean by allowance is not judging ourselves, not judging how intense we are, not judging how fast we are, how multitasky we are, how much you like to get done in a day. These are all energies that you can see that are judged. Like multitasking, that's judged not by everybody. It's becoming more acceptable as a way of functioning now that there's more conversations about being neurodiverse, because neurodiverse people really, like, a lot of times require that, like, a lot of stimulation happening. So there's more of that available now as a reality, or as like a conversation. But but having this, like, I mean, for me, it's like I wake up every morning and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to create, and this is like massive future that I'd like to have, and I'd like to have it now. I'd like to have it yesterday, and like I want to have like cool people in my life, and like all these things, and it goes, the intensity that I enjoy, it goes everywhere. Like it goes into my business and what I'm asking for, and what I'm asking for financially, and what I'm asking for with my living, and what I'm asking for with my body, and even like meals, and it's like if it's like intense and beautiful, that's how I like it. And but in the world, the standard way of being is so much more, quite honestly, about mediocrity and being mediocre, and like settling for the status quo. Just like, can't you just be grateful for what you have? Don't ask for too much. All these things where we're judged by other people, we're judged by the world, by the standard operating procedure in this reality. We're judged by that, and then we take on those judgments. We start to adopt, as children, even we start to adopt those judgments of ourselves, and then we internalize that, the voice of the judgment, and then we just do it. We once And I would say that's actually, like, scarily enough, a lot of how education works is like, internalize the voice of judgment, the voice of reason, the voice of mental masturbation, internalize it so that you can do it for yourself. And then you're equipped to go out in the world, right? So what's possible beyond that? And what if we can uninternalize that, like delete that, get rid of it, which the tools of access consciousness are amazing for. The energetic process of the access bars, amazing, actually deeply relaxing process that, you can fall asleep and you wake up a different person. It's so incredible. And there's a lot of different body processes and stuff like that we do. And just the tools of access in general that you can get in the bars class, the foundation class, there's a different, business done different, X-Men classes. There's all these different types of classes you can take to get different awareness, different information, different energetic experiences around different things that we're asking for. And they're all in service of basically helping us to get to a place where we don't judge ourselves, and we don't do the internalized voice of this reality. We function from question and choice and possibility and contribution and chaos and the realms of creation, that we get to be different people on the planet, creating a different future and having a different reality. And that's where the intensity really comes. It becomes a gift. It is a gift. It is a huge gift. But the more we judge intensity, and the more that we judge ourselves as intense, we just have to constantly turn it down. And as I mentioned earlier, like, that hurts our bodies, it hurts our bank accounts, it hurts our businesses, to try to like be acceptable to the rest of the world, when you know what, you're probably not acceptable to the rest of the world. I mean, I don't really think that I am, and that's cool. Like, I don't need to be, I don't want to be. It's not a target of mine anymore. And the funny thing is that you can have a thriving business, being that, being something that's not acceptable to the rest of the world, because there's a lot of people looking for something different. And there's a lot of people not willing to be as intense as they actually are, seeing that as wrong, spending so much time and energy constantly turning it down, packaging it, sequestering it, hiding it, managing it, mitigating it, rather than just being like, here I am, let's go, And so what if you gave yourself permission to be as intense as you are? What if all of the places where that intensity of being, the intensity of engagement, the intensity of you, all those places where that shows up, that you would like to just be you, what if you give yourself permission to be that? What if you commit to getting out of the judgments of that and of you in regards to that, so that you can have the intense, like the gift of intensity, rather than the curse of intensity. It feels like a curse when it's something that we don't give ourselves the permission to have and to be. It feels like a gift when we're like, I'm different, I'm fast, I'm dynamic, I multitask, I can finish your sentence before you do. I know what's going to happen in 5 minutes from now, or 5 years from now. Like, I'm psychic, I'm aware, my body is intense, my body likes to move a lot and have intensity in various different ways. And I don't fit into this mediocre world. And nobody is going to give you permission to be that. Like, I mean, well, I will if you need it. But it's not that, I mean, the permission coming from me or anybody outside of you, whoever it may be, it doesn't really work that way. You have to give yourself permission. So you have to like sit with yourself, be present with yourself, and look at all the things that you judge as wrong about you, about the intensity that you be. Look at all those things, and I don't mean you have to like systematically go through everything, because change is so much easier than that at this point. But just become aware. Start to become aware of those places where you judge yourself out of the intensity of you. And you will find that those are the places where you're basically kind of like using your capacities for destruction against you. And this is a conversation we've been having in Access Consciousness recently around destruction and creation, deconstruction, and how we avoid all these destructive, deconstructive energies that so many of us be, especially the intense mofos of the world. We avoid those energies because we're like, I don't want to hurt people, I don't want to kill things, but there's so many things in this world that need to be killed. like just realities of like limitation and judgment and isolation and separation, and all these constructs that we have that are so limiting and so controlling, and where we don't get to be ourselves. Like, that's the kind of stuff that actually really needs to be destroyed in order for us to have a greater reality of creation and consciousness, and just so much more possibility, a greater future, communion with the earth, communion with our bodies, communion with each other. So, and people that are kind of just more functioning from standard operating procedure, and they're not necessarily going to question that, they're not going to be the ones to take that on. So the intense mofos of the world, we kind of need to, get together and be willing to be that which, puts people into question, that which deconstructs people's judgments and, conclusions about how things need to be done, and just so many constructs that are so limiting. And we have the ability to be that. And in so being and in so doing, there's this whole creative world that opens up that wasn't available before, that gives us access to the intensity of our being, the intensity of our universe, the intensity of our desire, the intensity of our bodies, to go forth and create a far greater future. When you stop judging it, you stop holding it back, you stop trying to, not mess things up with your intensity. And you're like, well, here we go, and you're actually able to kind of like broadband it, like have those energies be way wider and like have a wider berth rather than, fire hosing. We have this broadbanding way of being with those energies that becomes this invitation and starts to kind of like weave through the molecules of the universe and change things magically, really magically and miraculously. And that is That's where we give ourselves access to this massive, unique, dynamic, creative universe that is us, that is true for us, where we start to access the awareness that we have of how things can be created. We start to access just so many things that we, in avoiding the intensity and avoiding those kind of what might seem to be destructive energies, we don't like, we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And there's, you know, 90% of what we be, we don't get to access and be it because we're worried that it's going to have some negative impact, and what if we could, like, that's one of the biggest things I would say in the world nowadays, that is, it's such a lie that controls people out of being the powerhouses that they are, is like, don't, don't, like, rock the boat, don't, disrupt anybody's universe, don't make somebody uncomfortable. And there's a whole huge kind of like universe of that going on that's very political, and the whole woke kind of movement where it's like, it's this bastardization of difference, where it's like you have to tread lightly in everybody's world in case you offend them because they're different. But it's like, well, we're all different, so why can't we all just be different and not have to prove it and not have to, be careful with each other, but just be like, hey, who are you today? Who am I today? Um, and it's just a different way of being. But if you're an intense mofo, you might not be willing to have the level of presence with yourself. Maybe that's, let's say, historically, now what's possible after listening to this, that where you're just like, you know what, I can't hold myself back anymore. And if I offend somebody, so be it. Apologies in advance. And, you can always do cleanup afterwards if something, gets, messed up or whatever, if that's required. But so often it's the prevention of that a lot, that where we stop ourselves from the very beginning and we don't even proceed into these universes of creation that we truly would like to have and that we truly would like to be. We don't allow ourselves to move in that world because we're afraid we're going to, upset something. And I just really would like to invite all of us to just go beyond that and turn it up, you know, and you have to trust you. I have no intention of like hurting people or damaging them or, offending people or whatever. But I also know that if I approach the world and my life as with that as my primary objective, to never hurt somebody, never offend somebody, never ruffle their feathers or upset their apple cart, then I have to cut myself off so dynamically in order to constantly be assessing my impact on the world. And I'd rather be intense and aware and not control myself out of expressing who I be, but actually have the awareness and then the trusting of me, and then knowing that I'm always interested in creating a greater future. And if people don't see that, or they don't think that's the case, that's their choice, so be it. But I'm just not willing to bend, fold, staple, and mutilate myself anymore to try to make everybody else comfortable. And I think there's, for me, it's like, it's time for that. It's time to create like we know we can create, have what we know we can have the intensity, the enjoyment, the hedonism, the pleasure, the aliveness, the creation, the creative realities, the generativity, the awareness of the future, the communion, the ecstasy, the joy that is available. And if you're an intense mofo, you know it. You know something about that is unique to you. I invite you to bring that. My world will be greater if you do. The world will be greater if you do, regardless of what people around you might say. So that's my invitation to you, a little, kind of fireside creation of living chat about intensity. and bring it on, world. Let's see it. Let's have it. Let's be it, and have way more fun than we're supposed to, because it is time. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. For more resources, check out my website at heathernichols.com and my social media channels as well. Have a beautiful day, and remember that your business thrives when you do.